50 days after Argentina invaded the Falklands, British forces were finally poised to attempt the island's recapture.
$64,000 question is day or night. We decided we'd do a night landing, because landing at night meant we'd be pretty well free of the Argentine Air Force.
With the QE-2 still steaming to the South Atlantic, the Royal Navy began landing 3 Commando Brigade at San Carlos overnight. But as dawn broke, men and supplies were still going ashore, and the cruise liner Canberra lay exposed in San Carlos water.
It was the most beautifully blue, clear day you've seen. It was absolutely the worst type of weather for being attacked by jet aircraft.
Suddenly, enemy air attacks came in from all directions. And I personally was really frightened because Canberra was stuffed with ammunition and fuel. And if we'd actually been hit, it probably would have been a serious disaster.
There's no laughing or joking now. The noise was deafening, explosions. It was terrifying. I can just remember gritting my teeth. Every muscle in my body was locked tight.
The gun crews, mostly 17 years old, soon had more battle experience than anyone else in the Navy.
They start shouting up on the radio, 2 hostile aircraft, 50 miles, 5 minutes, heart rate's getting faster, mouth's getting drier. The adrenaline's picking up now, and these 2 Mirages come screaming through the sound. They're literally at our eye level. I'm just trying to put a wall of lead down ahead of the Mirage at the right elevation so it flies through it. So I'm chugging away. And I can hear behind me this sergeant, he's jumping up and down like, his team's won the cup. And he's going, yeah, brilliant, you hit it, you hit it. I'm only 17 and here I am on the bridge of the Camera shooting at fighter jets.
In 4 days, the Argentine Air Force sank 3 British vessels and damaged 6 others.
There was definitely a psychological wobble. I think people were beginning to worry about how long the Navy could sustain losing ships in the way they did.
The British ships suffered heavy losses. The ground troops landed unopposed.
It took 6 weeks to sail down there, and every day, twice a day, I'd waxed my German paratrooper boots, and I'd wrapped tape around the top so the water wouldn't get in from the top. And then I ended up in the water. As I was walking, I thought, the boots are good, the boots are good. No, they're not. The water started coming in, so I had wet feet from day one, and I was not a happy soldier.
British troops were now 50 miles from Port Stanley. But the small SAS patrol on Mount Kent was just 10 miles from the capital. Such an advanced position, free of the enemy, focused the minds of the land commanders now ashore.
Mount Kent is rather like the top of a stairway leading down to Stanley. It's the highest mountain in the area. Once you're up there, it's downhill all the way. So Mount Kent, to my mind, was the key to this whole thing.
Julian Thompson and Michael Rose wanted to act fast and move troops up to secure the mountain.
And we should have moved on the 25th of May, 4 days after the landing. From there, the British artillery could shell all their positions.
But the advance to capture Mount Kent was about to stall due to the biggest logistical disaster of the war.
I remember thinking and saying to all my fellow officers, the 25th of May is Argentina's National Day. It is inconceivable that they won't conduct a big strike. And we were all thinking to ourselves, we've just got to get through till sunset and things will be fine.
The biggest British supply ship, Atlantic Conveyor, moved in with a naval escort to unload its cargo.
I have to say that I wasn't aware that Atlantic Conveyor was coming in daylight.
Unlike the Royal Naval vessels, the civilian container ship had no anti-missile protection. When the convoy was attacked by Exocet missiles, the warships fired aluminium strips, known as chaff, to attract the projectiles away from their targets. But behind the curtain of chaff lay the Atlantic Conveyor.
And then we heard that Atlantic Conveyor had been struck by one, maybe two Exocets. At the time, we thought it was criminal that Atlantic Conveyor was brought in before sunset on that day, and even today, I don't know who made that decision.
The ship's supplies were essential to the land forces.
4 Chinooks, a lot of Wessex helicopters, all our combat supplies, rations, tents had all gone down on the Atlantic Conveyor.
The whole game was changed hugely.
I remember thinking, oh, this is all getting a bit serious.
After the loss of 5 ships and with 5 brigades still 1,000 miles away, the politicians back home were becoming impatient. Their attention was drawn to the settlements of Darwin and Goose Green, the sites of an Argentine garrison and an airfield.
Margaret Thatcher was increasingly saying, look, we have to give something to the people of this country to show what we're doing.
War is politics by another means, isn't it? So I sent for H, and I said, you're not going to know how to capture it.
H was Herbert Jones, the commander of 2 Para.
We all called him H. He was fiercely loyal, he was fun to be with, very proud of the battalion.
He was an absolute military fanatic, and he was a very good soldier.
The attack on Darwin Goose Green to the south of the beachhead meant delaying the move to Mount Kent, championed by Michael Rose. Good news for the 2 Para commander.
H. Jones came running back saying, ha ha, you've lost your move and I've got my battle back. Well, it was an absolute shock to me. We were suddenly held up on our main advance and ordered to go and attack Darwin Goose Green, which was in quite the wrong direction. To go and attack off the line of march, an unnecessary target, use up time, use up resources, was completely nonsensical.
The plan was that they would have taken Goose Green by first light, but the light had started to come up and I think things had ground to a halt, and this particular trench was holding them up. And he was not somebody who would ask people to do something he wasn't prepared to do himself.
He was leading a platoon attack, and as he approached the machine gun position, he was sized down.
That was taken where they landed initially. It was in his camera when it was returned. It's quite a precious photograph, really.
"20 Paras were killed in that battle, including my good friend H. Jones.
Lieutenant Colonel Jones, Captain Wood, Captain James, Lieutenant Barrett.
People say, retrospectively, that it was a great psychological blow to the Argentines, but the psychological blow was not nearly as great as it would have been had an artillery batteries from Mount Kent been closing down every single Argentine defence position with observed artillery fire.
With the advance on Port Stanley delayed by the assault on Goose Green, and as 5 Brigade prepared to disembark in San Carlos Water, the small SAS force on Mount Kent was discovered by the Argentinians.
Because we hadn't moved to Mount Kent when we should have done on the 25th of May, the Argentines had already flown in some special forces units to knock us off the top of Mount Kent.
Julian Thompson ordered Marines from 4-2 Commando forward by helicopter to take Mount Kent.
We were hugging the ground, the helicopter was getting thrown from side to side, everything's in pitch black. We're going 60 kilometres into no man's land here. Are we going to be fighting for our lives as soon as we jump off?
We pile out the chopper and there's a firefight in progress and tracers streaking all over the place. I was absolutely terrified. I just huddled behind a rock, wondering at what moment I meet my maker.
By the time we got there, the Argentine Special Forces were almost up onto the ridge from which they could have brought direct fire down onto the landing helicopters. Then, as Julian Thompson said, it would have been game over.
Si la operación hubiera salido 10, 15 minutos antes, posiblemente nosotros hubiéramos estado en fuerza superior en el lugar y las fuerzas británicas hubieran estado llegando en su forma más vulnerable dentro de los helicópteros, sujetos al fuego de nuestra gente desde tierra.
So it was down to 10 minutes that we might well have lost the war.
After a fierce fight, the British drove off the Argentinians from the peak.
We yomped right up to the absolute summit of the mountain. And through binoculars, we could see the Argentines moving around. For the first time, you thought, maybe we're going to win this thing. We were within reach of Port Stanley.
We'd come all this way, and suddenly there was this little hamlet with red roof houses in the distance. It made you wonder, have we come all this way just for that?
The capture of Mount Kent cleared the way for more Marines and Paras to move up for the final assault. But with a shortage of helicopters from the loss of the Atlantic conveyor, most of them had to walk.
Everybody forgets how large the Falklands are. Taken together, the landmass is the size of Wales.
The 3 Para and 4-5 Commander were the only ones that walked across the island. It was about 90 Ks. We all had about 150 pounds on our back. The ground was terrible. And if you stand on a tuft of grass wrong, you slide off and you can snap your ankles. And that was a march from hell. It really was. It was so hard.